What is happiness? A philosophical reflection on the meaning of life. Happiness is one of those topics that seems simple at first glance, but when we start reflecting on it, we realize it is one of the most complex and profound questions humanity has ever sought to understand. What is happiness? Is it a permanent state or just fleeting moments of joy? And more importantly, how can we find it amidst life's turbulence? These questions have been asked by philosophers, thinkers, and ordinary people throughout the centuries, and each of us, at some point, has paused to ponder them. After all, the pursuit of happiness is one of the most universal motivations that exist. But to truly understand what it means to be happy, we must go beyond superficial definitions and dive into deeper reflection. One of the first things we need to understand is that happiness is not something we can find outside ourselves. Often we think we will be happy when we achieve certain goals, a good job, a comfortable home, a stable relationship, or any other material accomplishment. However, philosophy teaches us that happiness does not lie in the things we possess or in external circumstances, but in how we handle what life presents to us. This does not mean we should ignore our desires or abandon our goals, but rather that we must learn to find satisfaction and inner peace regardless of what happens around us. This is where Stoicism, one of the most influential philosophical currents in history, can offer us valuable insights. The Stoics believe that true happiness lies in virtue, that is, in living according to our deepest values and acting with wisdom, courage, justice, and self-control. For them, happiness does not depend on external factors like wealth, fame, or power, but on how we respond to the situations we face. This means that even in the midst of difficulties, we can find a sense of purpose and fulfillment if we keep our minds focused on what truly matters. One of the central concepts of Stoicism is the idea that we cannot control everything that happens to us, but we can control how we react to these events. Imagine, for example, that you are stuck in a traffic jam. You can choose to get angry and frustrated, or you can use that time to reflect, listen to music you enjoy, or simply appreciate the moment of pause. The situation itself does not change, but how you face it makes all the difference. This ability to choose our response to circumstances is what the Stoics call internal control, and it is one of the keys to happiness. But how can we develop this internal control? The answer lies in the constant practice of self-discipline and reflection. The Stoics recommended dedicating some time each day to reflecting on our actions, thoughts, and emotions. They called this the examination of conscience, and it was a way to become more aware of our behavioral patterns and identify areas where we could improve. By doing this, we learn to recognize when we are being guided by impulses or negative emotions, and to redirect our energy toward what truly matters. Another important aspect of Stoic philosophy is the acceptance of impermanence. Everything in life is fleeting: joys, sorrows, successes, and failures. When we understand this, we can learn to appreciate each moment without becoming overly attached to it. This does not mean we should be indifferent or detached from everything, but rather that we must cultivate an attitude of gratitude and acceptance toward life. After all, it is precisely the transient nature of things that makes each experience unique and valuable. A practical example of this can be seen in how we handle loss. We have all, at some point, faced painful situations, such as the end of a relationship, the death of a loved one, or the loss of a job. In these moments, it is natural to feel sadness, anger, or frustration. However, the Stoics remind us that even though we cannot control what happens to us, we can choose how to manage these emotions. Instead of letting ourselves be consumed by pain, we can use these experiences as opportunities to grow and learn. After all, it is in difficulties that we often discover our inner strength and ability to overcome challenges. But happiness is not just about facing adversity. It is also deeply connected to the meaning we give to our lives. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, wrote in his book Man's Search for Meaning that the search for meaning is one of the most powerful driving forces of human beings. According to him, even in the most desperate circumstances, people can find a purpose that helps them endure suffering and move forward. For Frankl, the meaning of life is not something given to us, but something we must discover and create for ourselves. This leads us to a fundamental question: how can we find meaning in our lives? The answer may vary from person to person, but some elements are universal. One of them is connection with others. Studies show that people who have meaningful relationships and feel part of a community tend to be happier and more satisfied with their lives. This is because human beings are, by nature, social creatures, and our happiness is deeply tied to the quality of our interactions with others. Another important element is contributing to something greater than ourselves. When we dedicate ourselves to a cause, help others, or simply do something we consider meaningful, we feel that our lives have purpose. This can be something as simple as caring for a plant, teaching someone something, or participating in a volunteer project. What matters is that we feel connected to something that goes beyond our own interests and desires. Finally, happiness is also linked to self-awareness. When we understand who we are, what we value, and what we want for our lives, we can make decisions more aligned with our true desires and needs. This does not mean we must follow a predetermined path, but rather that we must be attentive to our feelings and intuitions and use them as guides for our choices. Now that we have explored some of the central ideas about happiness and the meaning of life, let us delve deeper into how we can apply these concepts in our daily lives. After all, philosophy is not just a theoretical discipline, but a practice that can help us live more fully and meaningfully. And to do this, we must start with ourselves. One of the first things we can do is cultivate an attitude of gratitude. Gratitude is one of the simplest and most powerful practices that exist, and it has a profound impact on our happiness. When we focus on the good things we have in our lives, rather than on what we lack, we create a sense of abundance and satisfaction. This does not mean we should ignore our problems or difficulties, but rather that we must learn to value what we already have, even in the midst of adversity. A simple exercise we can do is to list every day 3 things we are grateful for. It could be something big, like the health of our family, or something small, like a hot coffee on a cold morning. The important thing is to remind ourselves that even in the most difficult moments, there is always something to be grateful for. This practice helps us shift our perspective and find joy in the small things in life. Another practice that can help us find happiness and meaning is meditation. Meditation does not have to be something complicated or lengthy. It can be as simple as sitting in silence for a few minutes and focusing on our breath. The goal is to connect with the present moment and calm the mind, which is often cluttered with worries and distractions. When we meditate, we learn to observe our thoughts and emotions without being carried away by them, which helps us develop greater clarity and emotional balance. Moreover, meditation can also help us develop a greater awareness of our values and priorities. When we are in silence, we have the opportunity to reflect on what truly matters to us and align our actions with our true desires. This allows us to live more authentically and intentionally, which is essential for happiness. Another important aspect is the practice of generosity. When we help others, we not only contribute to their well-being, but also experience a sense of connection and purpose. Generosity can manifest in many ways. It can be a simple gesture, like offering a smile or a word of encouragement, or something more significant, like donating time or resources to a cause we believe in. What matters is that we feel connected to something greater than ourselves and recognize the positive impact our actions can have on the world. But happiness is not just about individual practices. It is also tied to how we interact with others. As social beings, our happiness is deeply linked to the quality of our interactions and relationships. This means we must invest time and energy in building and maintaining meaningful connections with the people around us. One way to do this is by practicing active listening. Often, we are so preoccupied with expressing our own opinions and needs that we forget to truly listen to what others have to say. Active listening involves being fully present during a conversation, without distractions or judgments, and seeking to understand the other person's point of view. When we practice active listening, we not only strengthen our relationships, but also create a space for empathy and understanding that can be deeply rewarding. Another way to strengthen our relationships is by expressing gratitude and appreciation for the people in our lives. Often, we take for granted those around us, but it is important to remember that relationships need to be nurtured and valued. A simple thank you or a sincere compliment can make a big difference in how we connect with others. Additionally, it is important to recognize that relationships also involve challenges and conflicts. No one is perfect, and we all make mistakes. The key is to learn to handle these challenges constructively, with patience, understanding, and a willingness to forgive. When we manage to overcome conflicts and strengthen our bonds, we create deeper and more meaningful relationships, which are a constant source of happiness and support. Finally, happiness is also related to how we view the future. Often, we spend so much time worrying about what might happen that we forget to live in the present. However, philosophy teaches us that the future is uncertain and that the only thing we truly have is the present moment. When we learn to live in the here and now, we can find a sense of peace and contentment that does not depend on external circumstances. This does not mean we should abandon our plans and goals, but rather that we must find a balance between planning for the future and appreciating the present. We can set goals and work toward achieving them, but without letting ourselves be consumed by anxiety or pressure. After all, life is a journey, and every moment is an opportunity to learn, grow, and find meaning. Ultimately, happiness is not a destination, but a path. It is not something we can achieve once and for all, but a constant practice of self-awareness, gratitude, connection, and purpose. When we understand this, we can stop chasing happiness as if it were something distant and unattainable and start finding it in the small things of everyday life. And in doing so, we discover that happiness is not somewhere outside of us, but within ourselves, waiting to be discovered and cultivated. If you like this content or theme, click like and do not forget to subscribe to the channel and also share with someone who is also in need of listening to this content.